Before we get revved up today, we have two things that we got to cover. First and foremost, I am not an attorney and nothing in this video should ever be construed to be legal advice of any way, shape, or form. You cannot actually take legal advice from somebody who's making videos on the internet because just because somebody's an attorney doesn't mean that they are your attorney. That said, number two, if you are in either of the rare breed or WOT camps, and for all intents and purposes, we're going to use WOT and BDU interchangeably here today because who are we really talking about? But I suppose you could also be in a third camp, which would be the ATF, but you're weird and I don't know what's wrong with you. But if you're in any of those camps, today's video is probably going to leave you upset, okay? Because I have something to say about everybody involved in this three-way dick measure and pissing contest circle jerk that we got going on between all three parties. If you haven't been following the WOT rare breed trigger fiasco, then I will very quickly paraphrase. I'm going to leave some stuff out because I don't want this to be, it'd be a saga if we did that. Rare breed makes a thing called the force reset trigger and the ATF says, hey, we don't like that thing, stop making it. And rare breed says, no. They subsequently sue the ATF. Simultaneously, they sue their competitor, Big Daddy Unlimited, Wide Open Triggers, saying, hey, you knocked off our product. So a whole bunch of legalese has happened over the course of the last several months pertaining to this situation on both the suit with the ATF and the WOT suit. But the one that's really pertinent is the one that happened in the last couple weeks. And basically Rare Breed got a sort of a half of a win over Big Daddy Unlimited in that their cease and desist was granted by the court, and what that did was extend all the way down to the retail level. So they've essentially freezed the product in the supply chain, and that's what's really pertinent to this. So, of course, I'm lying down to bed last night, and while I'm getting ready for bed, our superstars are out there actually working, and Mr. Gunsinger put out a video late last night talking about the leak that the GOA got a hold of in terms of the ATF is looking at going around to the retailers and the distributors and confiscating these devices. And I'll have a screenshot here somewhere to the redacted letter that he posted, as well as links to his video and, of course, the GOA's video on the topic as well, so that you guys can do your own research, just don't take my word for it. So according to my analytics, a large percentage of you are adults. And then an even larger percentage of you, I would say, can read and write. So I trust that y'all can handle this. However, I'm going to quickly paraphrase this, and basically this internal ATF memo says that they're going to go to every place that they suspect possesses these in that supply chain and confiscate them via two methods. Either first, through voluntary relinquishment, in which case they go to the premises, the possessor hands them the devices, they give them some paperwork to sign, and they leave them alone. And then the second method is at gunpoint. Now, if you guys interpret this some other way, then I would love to see how you rationalize that in the comment section down below. But that's how I read this, and I think that's how most people read this. What we're talking about here is predominantly FFL holders, and the rules are a little bit different for FFL holders than the general populace. We can't get away with everything, but generally speaking, there are some differing privileges that are granted to FFLs that should be rights. Kurt, let it go, buddy. This is not the time or the place to get on a soapbox. So yeah, talking about FFLs here, but I think depending on which FFL a business holds, that there are some other options besides the ones that were readily apparent given to those businesses. And I'm interested in what you guys think about these other options, and I'm going to lay out here in just a second after we take this break. So the National Association for Gun Rights. Think NRA, except for delete the part about the whole buying new wardrobe every couple months for our president, whose annual election is about as legitimate as a third world country in the midst of a five-way civil war type thing. Yeah, so I suppose not like the NRA at all, because that's basically, have you seen their expenditures? It's basically all they spend money on these days. I've actually met people at NAGR, and they seem like people who are legitimately concerned about advancing gun rights in this country. So for instance, last week at the SHOT Show, the largest gun enthusiast gathering in the world, they were proliferating a petition to abolish the ATF. And needless to say, I signed that shit. What they wanted me to talk about in today's video was their YouTube channel. Yes, they're here on the platform where not only they talk about their current initiatives, but they also have a lot of cool toys that they put on display. So I'll have links to their YouTube channel in the description box down below. Please consider checking them out, and thank you to them for making today's video possible. And this is where I piss a whole bunch of people off. So hold on to your bucket seats, boys and girls. Before we get to the meat and potatoes that I mentioned, I think it's really important to outline the bind that these companies are in. The products that they have on their premises cannot move up or down the supply chain. You can't sell them to the consumer for two reasons. First, if they were to sell it to a consumer, they'd be in violation of the cease and desist order in the Rare Breed WOT lawsuit, and the owner of Rare Breed has already said that he will sue anybody who sells a WOT trigger, and I believe him, because he's demonstrated himself at this point to be a fairly litigious person. And while we're there, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think I've ever said this. There's a prevailing trend in the firearms industry these days that if somebody makes a product that is remotely similar to yours and you can't compete with them, the play is to sue them. Because if you even get a temporary cease and desist, they are now hemorrhaging money on the product that they put into development to sell. As it sits on their floor, they're hemorrhaging money on that while they're also litigating with you while you are able to continue to sell your product. So it undermines the competitive nature of the market. And really, at the end of the day, both companies end up down because they're litigating instead of selling. And nobody wins. Neither of those two parties win. The consumer sure as hell doesn't win. And really, the only person who's serviced is the ego of the person who filed the lawsuit. And the frivolous lawsuit trend in the firearms industry just really burns my ass, and I'm sick of it. Okay? You want to sue the ATF? I'm on your side, man. Frickin' A. Go for it. Gun companies suing other gun companies? Very rarely, in my opinion, should that be a thing. I think there are adult solutions to that situation, and none of them were used in this whole fiasco that's going on. Wow, did that just happen? Holy crap. I'm gonna have to check that in post to see if I can, who am I kidding? I'm publishing it anyway, it's staying in. The reason I think that discussion is important is because this is gonna be decided in the courts. Both situations are gonna be decided by courts, okay? Both the ATF situation and the WOT Rare Breed situation is gonna be decided in court. The danger here is because there is no way, if you're intellectually honest and you have held both products in your hand, of which I have, can you look at those two products and say that one is a knockoff of the other, which is the exact words that the judge in the civil suit used. And that's dangerous, in my opinion, because you either look at those two products and see two completely different products, or if you see the same product, you either have a vested interest in one party or the other, or you have absolutely no fucking clue what you're talking about. Because you just can't do it. They have different numbers of parts, they function differently, they're not the same product. The danger here is that the precedent is being set that a judge with absolutely no clue what the heck he's talking about is going to decide whether or not these devices are machine guns or not. Probably on the basis of the ATF's opinion. To be clear, I'm not saying that these cases are in any way, shape, or form linked. They're different cases, different judges, different settings, different levels of scrutiny, etc., etc., etc. But what I am saying is that it has clearly been demonstrated to this point, at least in my mind, that firearms technical knowledge is not a prerequisite to participate in the litigation, because the amount on display in these rooms is severely lacking, bordering on the criminal. Apply that scenario to what I would say reason two why a retailer or distributor can't move it to the consumer is, again, it's in the court. It hasn't been decided that these are or not machine guns. We know that they're not machine guns, but the court, I'm not so sure that the court is going to be able to figure out whether or not they are or not at this point in time. And if you are a federal firearms licensee that transfers that device to a citizen of the United States, that's a big no-no. just saying that movement of machine guns between parties is not good, which is the other reason why it can't move up the supply chain. Even if you are a federal firearms licensee with all the requisite kickers and all that sort of stuff, it is still not legal to move a machine gun from party to party, even if both parties hold the requisite licenses, with the exception of a demonstration for some kind of entity. And to do that, you have to have the requisite paperwork, commonly referred to as a law letter. And you ain't getting one for this. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Woosah. Big breath out. Woosah. As of right now, as of the filming of today's video, I don't believe that the ATF has hard records. Now, granted, I don't talk to either of these companies. All my communication with either of these companies comes through the Leviathan Group. I don't want to touch either of these smarms. I just think that they're dirty. Rare Breed has said that they will not release their records, and I believe them. And then, even though they were recently raided, BDU WOT says that they only took product and no computers, and that they won't release their records. If I was gonna be concerned about somebody, I would probably say BDU, given their recent affinity for gun buybacks and throwing pizza parties for law enforcement agencies that perpetrate such crimes, as well as supplying them with the equipment to do it. And I know I'm being really mean, but you make your bed and you sleep in it. That said, they said that they're not going to release their records, and they haven't yet. So, as of right now, I'm saying that basically the way this looks to me is that the ATF is probably going to target the largest distributors and retailers pertaining to these products to look for them first, because they don't have hard evidence on who has what at this point in time. So they're probably going to target them first. So, which brings me to what I believe are some options for FFLs that currently hold these devices. Now, again, to rehash, this is not legal advice. If you're an 07 with an SOT and you have paid your ITAR registration, you register with DDTC, that allows you the, and I hate this word, privilege to manufacture defense articles, which includes suppressors and machine guns, both for military applications as well as for law enforcement demos. This is a well-documented thing that happens across the industry all the time. If you have an 07, which is a manufacturer's license, and SOT, and you have registered with ITAR, you have the ability to make machine guns. So the play is, you buy a bunch of poverty ponies, you convert them to machine guns, you register them with the ATF, and then you drop those triggers inside of them and you let them figure out what the rules are. The other play that I think, if you are just a dealer, as in you're an 01, and this also would work for an 07, this would also work for a manufacturer. The second play is that you cut them and you destroy them. And I'm really not into that, except for, I think in this situation, there is an overriding thing. And let me explain. And I think that most of you will agree with me. Although I'm really anti-destroying things that the government doesn't want you to have, I think the bigger play that the ATF is going for here is they're going to show up to all these businesses and they're going to say, hey, give us your triggers, sign this paperwork. And the vast majority of them are going to comply with that. And I guarantee you on that paperwork, they're going to call those devices machine guns. And they're going to take that paperwork right over to their court case with Rare Breed triggers. And they're going to say, Your Honor, look at all these industry professionals that agreed with us that these are machine guns and handed them over. Now, in my opinion, that's the worst case scenario. We want to make sure that that list is as short as possible, because that sets a dangerous precedent that the ATF can redefine whatever it is that they want at any point in time and confiscate anything from anyone at any point in time that they deem it's unnecessary for you to have it. And that hurts everyone. Now, in closing, I have a message for both Rare Breed Triggers and BDU, WOT. The dudes at the top, and I don't know if they'll actually see this message, maybe with your guys' help, they will. You two, can you put down your midlife crises for a couple months? If y'all had stopped playing dick chess for just a little bit of time and combined forces, you might have a good chance of actually beating the ATF, because y'all got a bunch of resources. And I think you could do it if you just stop the infighting. Even if you just suspend hostilities for a brief period of time and say, hey, we're going to take on the bigger enemy. You can't win a war on two fronts. Very rarely has it been done. WOT BDU. Join Rare Breed's lawsuit against the ATF. I know that you really like cops, but please do that. And in exchange, Rare Breed, temporarily at least, drop your lawsuit against BDU WOT. Combine forces and defeat the larger enemy. Because right now, what you guys are doing is putting everybody in a worse situation with your infighting. You're getting steamrolled by the ATF because you two are playing hide the sausage with each other while they're coming in with guns. Really aren't paying attention to the larger picture. You're paying attention to your narcissistic needs, and you're hurting everyone. Blood pressure.